Hey there guys, Kieran here with another episode of Kieran's Movie Space, and this is my spoiler-free review of Jack Ryan Season 1, which landed on Amazon Prime Video about a week ago. And I actually did binge the full first season when it first dropped, just thinking that I'd be able to get this review out a little bit earlier than this, but some stuff got in the way, just kind of life and all that kind of stuff, so I'm just going to do it now. And in case you didn't know what Jack Ryan is, it's the latest adaptation of Tom Clancy's book series. I say latest because we've seen multiple versions of Jack Ryan on the big screen over the years. He's been played by Harrison Ford, Chris Pine, Ben Affleck, Alec Baldwin, but now he's been played by John Krasinski, who you might know from The Office. He obviously played Jim on that show, but more recently he directed, wrote and starred in the brilliant horror film A Quiet Place. In the show, Jack Ryan is an analyst for the CIA who's been tracking a major terrorist, and his hunt for this guy takes him away from his desk and away from safety into the field, and that's pretty much all I want to say about the plot, so let's just get into this review. And before I go into more detail, I'll just say that on a whole I really enjoyed this first season. I think Jack Ryan's been one of the best shows of 2018 so far. The cast is great, the tone and the style of the show is presented really well, and this is just a really fun and a really engaging show to watch. As usual, I'll start with the stuff I liked about Jack Ryan Season 1, and probably my favourite thing about the show was John Krasinski. I know Krasinski isn't exactly the guy everyone imagines when you say super spy or action hero, but he does a fantastic job of leading this show. He's believable as a badass action hero, he brings a lot of charm to the character, and there's still a lot of comedy in there as well. You see little bits of his comedic side come through, and all of those things kind of come together to create this version of Jack Ryan. Before I watched this, I went back and watched a few of the older films just to get an idea of what the other versions of Jack Ryan were like, and while I think most of the actors did a pretty good job, Krasinski is probably the most realistic and the most relatable version of that character, and I think that mostly comes down to his performance and the fact that he's given more time to flesh Jack Ryan out and develop the character. All of the supporting characters do a decent job as well. Aside from Krasinski, I'd say that the standout is easily Wendell Pierce, who you'll know from Suits, and he plays Jim, Jack's boss, and his kind of mentor, and Pierce brings a lot of comedy to that character, and then we get this kind of bromance and this relationship formed between those two characters, and that's one of the more entertaining and probably one of the most enjoyable aspects of this entire season. Just watching those two kind of go back and forth and the banter between them was just fun to watch, and it gave you some real comedic moments throughout the show. Abby Cornish plays Jack's love interest Kathy, and she's really good as well, although I will say that Jack's love life pretty much takes a backseat for most of the season, just because obviously there are bigger and more important things going on, but I will say that Abby Cornish does a really good job, especially in the later episodes of the season. There is obviously the whole terrorism element of the series, and this first season has done a really great job of telling a story that's relevant to the current landscape. The show handles the antagonist really well as well, because unlike most films or shows that have terrorists as the bad guys, Jack Ryan takes the time to flesh them out. This isn't a faceless kind of terrorist group like ISIS. You get to know what they're about, you get to know the leader, you find out what radicalized him, and that's not to say that the show makes these people sympathetic, because it absolutely doesn't, but it was definitely interesting to see the show take that time to create a compelling antagonist for the season, and to kind of do something that other shows don't often do, which was to show the villains and show the terrorists and kind of their motives in a more detailed way. The action is another thing that I really enjoyed about Jack Ryan. I went into this expecting more of a political kind of them just tracking the terrorists down and sitting in an office most of the time, but there are actually a lot of really explosive and big scale action scenes. There's a lot of quite intense action scenes as well, scenes where you're actually scared for the characters, and they've done a fantastic job of delivering action scenes that aren't just for spectacle. They make sense for the story, and they're always there to push things along or develop the characters, and that was one of the elements that really surprised and impressed me about this first season. There are a few things that didn't work for me throughout this season. I will say that I didn't have any major or really any kind of big problems, but just a few small things that could have worked a little bit better. I think at times the show kind of went into familiar territory. It felt quite similar to other shows like 24 and Homeland at points, so I think that it could have been more original at certain points. And then I found that the show is very black and white quite a lot of the time. You know, you get to know who the bad guys are and who the good guys are straight away, and there was no real shade of grey. Jack's pretty much a superhero with perfect morals, and he never falters for a second, and that didn't always feel like a realistic representation of someone in that position. So I think it could have been just a little bit more interesting if we got to see certain shades of grey, certain people doing things that might not be the best things, but doing them for the better reasons and doing them for a good outcome. Not everyone's perfect and good, and not everyone's just straight evil. So I just think the show could have developed that and got into that just a little bit more. But like I said, those are only really small issues I had with this season, and overall this is a show that I really enjoyed and I really loved. I do think it's one of the best shows of 2018. I think John Krasinski is great. He's having a phenomenal year. It's already been renewed for a second season, so I can't wait for that. I need to know what happens next. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and to give this season of Jack Ryan a score out of 10, I'm going to go with a 9.8. This really is, it's a brilliant show. It's fun, it's intense, it's action-packed, and it's just a really enjoyable watch. And with that score comes the end of my Jack Ryan review. Have you watched the full season? If so, let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Please like and share this episode, and if you're listening on YouTube, it'd be awesome if you could hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. I'll be back soon with more reviews, but for now, thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.